Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Welcome to the ADK Rock and Metal channel. We're back doing some more top trumps. We're in round four, I think, of this now. We have three albums that we picked last week for us to go away and all check out. We each picked an album, and we're now going to come back with our scores on riffage, melody, hookability, lyrics, and musicianship. So before we do that, we need to tell you about the albums that we picked. So, Andy, what was your pick for this week and why?
I think my albums came out in the early 90s. It's a Texas doom band called Solitude Aeturnus, and it's their debut, Into the Depths of Sorrow. The reason why this album is important to me, we're going back to the tape trading days where I had copies sent to me from somebody of their two demo tracks, two different singers, but epic doom metal, the sort of thing I was really getting into at the time. And I was really looking forward to the Roadrunner release of this album, and I wasn't disappointed, so that's why I put it forward for you guys to listen to as well.
Cool. My pick was the album Cleansing by the band Prong. '94, I think, if I remember right, around that sort of time. For me, it was the time I got into Prong. It was the album that I was introduced to the band from. Got to see them when they did the tour in relating to this album. They played at the Camden Underworld. Got my glasses smashed because I went into the mosh pit. I had to go home blind because I couldn't see on the tube. That was always fun. And yeah, it's for me at the time and going into this, I hadn't listened to this album for quite a long time. I remembered the big hits, but I couldn't remember much about the album. Thought it'd be good to go back to it, but I know it was a very influential album when we talk about riffs and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be good for us to view that one. Kirk, yours?
Yeah, I've gone for Slayer, God Hates Us All. I remember buying it in 2001 from I think it was a Northwestern music chain called Music Zone. Went out of business in 2003. And I also bought a copy for my friend for his 20th birthday. I remember us listening to Triton of War, loving it, and then we'd already got into Hell Awaits and Seasons in the Abyss, and there was quite a big furore surrounding this. I remember it getting good reviews in Terrorizer. I have to say, spoiler alert, I don't think it's a great album this now, listening to it in 2026, but we'll get to that.
We will indeed. We'll get our thoughts on these albums, but we're going to talk about riffage first, and obviously we can share thoughts as we go through on these sections as we discuss each album. But riffage, Andy, what were your thoughts for riffage across these three albums? And your scores, of course.
Yeah, well, we'll start with mine, obviously, the Solitude Aeturnus one. As I said in my intro, epic doom metal, very much sort of in the Candlemass vein, and the riffing reflects that there's power chords interwoven with single note melodies. There's some really beautiful guitar passages, sort of clean and acoustic, usually that starts off the songs, but there's also ringing chords and mid-tempo chugging throughout the album. So it's nothing outside of the realms of what you'd expect from epic doom metal or traditional doom metal. I mean, it is a guitar-led album, as doom often is, not always, but I've given the riffage score for this album at 65.
Okay.
Prong, Cleansing. Not a Prong fan by any stretch of the imagination. I do know the third track of the album, I think, Snap Your Fingers. We may even cover that on the channel at some point. We certainly have had a little delve into Prong over the years that we've been doing this. When it comes to riffage, particularly the sort of first half of the album, there are a variety of really, really good riffs, fantastic riffs. The first three in particular, palm-muted, chunky riffs. Cut rate is faster. There's sort of groove element in one number with some pinch harmonics. Out of This Misery is more melodic. Certainly certainly a riff-driven album, and I don't know if you guys agree with this. Whose Fist Is It Anyway? The opening of that song sounded very much like a Planet Fatal song, who are a Cambridgeshire-based sort of hard rock heavy metal band. That being said, riffage score 70.
Okay, Slayer then.
Slayer. In hindsight, I think I'm being quite generous with this score. There are some really good riffs. You know, you might even be able to put one in virtually every song, especially the opening couple. There's Groove in New Faith. Bloodline, I think we have covered that on the channel on a video review
we did
years and years ago. That had a sort of doomy element in my opinion. Here Comes the Pain has a really good riff, but it's spoilt by sort of, I've put down a very untechnical term, wah-wah noodling. You know, there's a really good riff there, but somebody's doing something terrible over the top of it. Payback is fast and technical. But Threshold, again, comparison sounded like The Sickness by Disturbed.
Okay.
Don't know if you think that. And like I said, I've given it rather generous 50 because there are some good riffs throughout many of the songs.
Fair enough. So my thoughts on these albums. So for Solitude Aeturnus and Into the Depths of Sorrow, good classic Doom in there. Dreams of Immortality, Transcending Sentinels, I thought were really nice. There are nice chord progressions throughout the album. It is Doom, so it's not something that I'm expecting it to be overly riff heavy. As far as like interesting riffs, they serve the song, and this is where I had to kind of weigh it up against riffage versus musicianship, because sometimes I hear a lot, and I guess sometimes melody and hookability they take away. Sometimes you get albums and bands that put in these amazing riffs that are really cool, really technical, but they distract from the rest of the song, but they're cool little riffs. In this case, it was a nice balance. There were nice melodic guitar passages, but no real riffs that massively stood out for me, so I did give it a score of 40. Prong was a little disappointing for me going back to this. As we always talk about how Tommy Victor's the riff lord. I don't think he is, but I think at the time this was really an important album because of the way that he delivers these riffs. It's all about the rhythm guitar riffs being about the dynamics of the rhythm. It's not about the flourishes. Yeah, I mean, Whose Fist Is It Anyway is really cool. But a lot of it is leaving space for the vocals. It's all about the dynamics rather than just having excessive riffage and being really technical on the guitars. So solid riffs based around groove. On their own, I'm not that exciting. When you just listen to them outside the context of the song and just listen to it as a riff, a little bit boring, some of those. Snap Your Fingers, Test, Whose Fists are all great tracks. Cut Rate and Broken Piece are also nice tracks on there. So I gave it a score of 50 on riffage. And for God Hates Us All, well, Bloodline, God Send Death, Scarstruck, and Here Comes the Pain have got good riffs in there, but wholly unoriginal. And if you own any other Slayer album, you've heard these riffs before. There is nothing original on here. I think it was expected to be a return to form for them coming back off of Diabolus in Musica, which was the album before this, which was very new metal orientated, and people were really kind of like, oh my god, you've done it. But I actually preferred Diabolus in Musica because at least it showed them that they were trying something a bit different. And actually at the end of this album you actually hear some of that new metal riffage coming back in again, so they hadn't moved completely away from it. But it's the sort of thing I would expect maybe a new band coming into this genre to put out as their debut album, not a band of 20 years in the making who should be able to do better than this. So I gave it a score of 20. Kirk?
They're all radically different, our scores. So I give a quite high score to Solitude Aeturnus for the riffing because it took me by surprise. I've given it a 70.
Okay.
Because they're not just relying on power chords. Like when you listen to track 2, Opaque Divinity, they had a cool palm muted groove at the end. I really enjoyed that part. It was good to discover that they're one of the early Roadrunner bands, Andy, as well, as you pointed out there. So from a historical point of view, you know, we know that became the label that dominated 90s metal, and good to see they were taking a punt on these Doom bands who you'd listen to in the tape trading scene. I like how they transition in some of the songs from Doom to like neo thrash metal, and they do that in Destiny, Falls to Ruin, and they do the same on track number 7, Mirror of Sorrow. And there's a solid crunch to the main riff in track number 3. The guitar tone, nice and thick, isn't it? And has stood the test of time, especially if you listen to track number 4, Dream of Immortality. Prong, right. Someone's going to have to get 100 for riffing. This is an album that's 100. Briefly explain, for me, top 5 riff albums of the 90s. Number 5, Machine Head. Sorry. Number 5, Pantera, Vocal Display of Power. Number 4, Machine Head, Burn My Eyes. Number 3, Death Human. Number 2, Paradise Lost, Shades of God. Number 1, Prong, Cleansing. Here's why. Track number 1, Another Worldly Device. Still sounds like nothing else in 2026. Razor sharp staccato riffing, which they somehow form a groove out of. Other than Helmet, I can't think of anyone who's doing this in 1994 or even before. The high treble guitar tone pioneered by Tommy Victor and the producer Terry Date, who worked with Pantera. It's the best of the 90s for me. He is the king of pinch harmonic riffing, as Andy pointed out. Whose fist is this anyway? That riff towards the end, it could be on a Ministry album. And he can also thrash as decisively as James Hetfield. We mentioned cut rate. That is so fast, those triplets that he's playing. It's just open E. But the technique, the aggression that he's picking those strings, it's still stands the test of time. And then you've got Broken Peace, track number 5. My God, there's 7 riffs in that are all monumental. You can see where Korn got some of their ideas from as well. And one final thing I'll say about this, if Fear Factory were using riffs as imaginative as this, they would have somehow been even better on Demanufacture. I think it just needed a few Tommy Victor riffs, that album, to be a perfect 10. Slayer, there's not much to score highly on this album, so I had to go for riffage, 65. And you're right, when I bought this and heard track number 1, I thought, fuck, this is a return to form. God Hates Us All, they still played that live now. That is pure thrash metal, real hard chugging on the strings, the drumming's incredible. And then after that, I've heard every riff. There's so much just like unimaginative downpicking, isn't there, on every song on this album? It's like he could write them in. It's like Tom Morello when you listen to Rage Against the Machine after 96. He just uses the same blues scale, doesn't he, for his riffs, and you can write one in 10 seconds. That's what Hanneman and King are doing here. I mean, examples of unimaginative riffing: New Faith, Exile, Seven Faces. Fucking hell, they could have been written in 5 minutes. To be fair, though, there's a song on here, track number 5, you've not mentioned, called Cast Down. You think, oh, that's going to be another run-of-the-mill song, but they break it down in the intro and then let the groove hang in this, like, morbid celebration and bring it back for the chorus. I sometimes hum that in my head. It reminds me of Jesus Saves off Rain in Blood. They do a similar technique. So it's not disastrous, but, yeah, I mean, there's not much originality in these riffs, is there, for God Hates Us All.
So one thing I would say before we give you the final score of who won that one, which was Prong, by the way, I almost did what you did with Prong, and I thought about the importance of those riffs in 1994.
She's here, Les.
But then when I thought about them, I was like, in 1994, these were really important. No one was doing this in 94, and everyone, and obviously the importance of that. But then I had to sit down and listen to them as just riffs on their own, and went, I don't know if they stand up as well compared now with the 30 years that's gone by and the bands that have come afterwards that have also done so much with guitar work now. That's how I judged it. So I think we were judging it slightly differently.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Because I couldn't. My first point, when you listen to them, you're like, "Fuck hell!" No one was doing this in '94 as far as that sort of guitar tone and that rhythmical riffage, and it was groundbreaking. Now you're like, it's old hat because it's already been done. So I kind of sat down a second time going through this and going, yeah, I'm gonna have to be a bit harder on my scores here because I don't think them as just listening to the riff going down down digga digga down down. I'm like, well, that's not a fucking that's 2 chords. That's just a rhythmical riff. That's not actually showing any originality. But at the time, it's groundbreaking. Now, not so much. But anyway, the winner for that one on our average scores is Prong. Now, let's get to the next round, which is all about the melody. That's going to be interesting for Slayer. Andy, over to you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Cat emergency. All good. Melody. With it being sort of Doom, there isn't a huge amount of melody in, the main sort of rhythm guitar. But there are on the, the nice clean acoustic sections and the clean guitar intro that we heard earlier. But there are on the solos and the tail offs and some of the riffs. So there is an element of melody. but you got to talk about the vocals. Robert Lowe, I thought when I heard this, one of the best vocalists I've ever heard. He trumped Messiah Marklin from Candlemass and the guy who preceded him. So I was really, really impressed by the vocals. And then throughout the Solitude Aeturnus catalogue, his vocals are fantastic. So there's real melody there, especially in the track that you mentioned, Kirk, I think Dream of Immortality, and the chorus of Transcending Sentinels. But so melody, I've scored 75 for Solitude Aeturnus. Prong, almost the opposite end of the end of the scale, 25. I mean, there's a few tracks that have a little melody, but it's the par muted riffing that sort of drives these songs. There's not much throughout. Although the track "Not of This Earth" I thought was complete contrast. That sort of melody start to finish. It's like what we call a palate cleanser when we do our reviews, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take away from the ferocity of the tracks. Let's have a nice sort of gentle track just to sort of soothe you down. So 25 is the score for Prong's melody. Slayer fare a little better, I'm afraid. The vocals are very linear and one-dimensional, so there's no melody there. A couple of tracks have some melody. I've noted down Bloodline, Exile, and Seven Face. Can't read my own writing. There's some nice guitar melodies in it, but vocally, I've not heard Slayer really from anything after South of Heaven. And the early Slayer albums, that I got into, Hell Awaits, Show No Mercy, Raining Blood, there's melody and actual projection in Tom Araya's vocals, but it's lazy.
It's manufactured rage, isn't it? It feels like he's going through the motions, doesn't really have any vigor behind what he's doing. Yeah.
The whole album can be encapsulated by the word lazy. Songwriting, riffs, vocals, lyrics. It's almost like they had a 1 week deadline to get an album produced and written. I don't know the history, but so melody for the Slayer album is 30.
Okay. Go on. Did you have any more there?
No, I've lost my train of thought. Go back to the other bit of paper, but I've done all three. Over to you, Dave.
All three. Okay.
I have done all three.
Right, for me, keep this nice and simple. So nice vocal melodies. I'll come talk about Solitude Aeturnus. Nice vocal melodies throughout the album. Really easy to get into. This album was not difficult. And some Doom bands are kind of like, oh, I'm not really vibing on this. It's just, God, you're so morbid and depressing. I can't handle this. But this was nice. It was sorrowful, but not depressing. So I enjoyed that, weirdly. So easy to get into. Very eerie, nice guitar melodies on occasional songs such as things like Mirror of Sorrow. So I gave the album 70 for melody. For Prong, you pretty much covered it. For me, Tommy is not a great singer. He's not known for being a great singer, but he is a very unique singer in my opinion. No one sounds like Tommy. He's got a very distinct voice. No real melodic lead lines, and really it's more in the hooks on the album than it is the melody. So I gave it 40 for melody. And for Slayer, my commentary on here is, what melody? Some nice vocal lines and some nice intro guitar, eerie guitar lines, but that's about it. So 20. Kirk?
Yeah, we should be expecting Solitude Aeturnus to win this just on paper when you look at the three, because they're the ones who value it more. We'll come on to Slayer and Prong, obviously. Give it 65. You're right, Robert Lowe. He's got that classic heavy metal range, but he sees no need to be pompous and operatic, and that's a good thing. And the clean guitar arpeggios, Andy, you've mentioned them. Track number 3, Transcending Sentinels, they work really well in tandem with the delicate lead guitar phrasing in the intro. And there is a nocturnal mood, like mystical mood to this album, which I really got into when I was listening to it. The reason I'm scoring it no higher than 65 though is because there's a lot of space in these songs. And melody should come easier to this band compared with, say, the Dillinger Escape Plan from round 2 or Slayer, which we'll get on to. And I feel they could have made more use of the keyboards in the songs. But it was an enjoyable album. Melody is important to this band. They do know what they're doing. Prong, he's a riff beast, Tommy Victor. This is metal. Melody does not need to be important if you're a metal band. And I've given it a 50 because there are actually some genuine attempts on this because he's influenced by Killing Joke, and Raven, the bass player, is from Killing Joke. Is it me or does side B just completely change the mood of this album? That's when he just starts playing around with these weird intervals, Killing Joke type chords, doesn't he? So I think when you get a song, as Andy mentioned, track number 9, Not of This Earth, and track number 11, Sublime, if they were played in clean mode, you'd be like, oh, they're playing some beautiful chords there. But I quite like how he does it in distortion as well. And his mid-range voice, you're right, David, it lacks vigor sometimes, but it is quite melodic because he has got his own style, hasn't he? And I think that is the only thing that lets Prong down. Sometimes you just want more muscular vocals, don't you? At least he's not trying to be something he's not. That is his range, isn't it? You know, it's like the high range of the baritone. So, I wasn't. You shouldn't be going to a Prong album thinking I'm going to buy this because they've got an abundance of melody. And then that's the same for Slayer. So, 50 for Prong, Slayer. I've given it 10. Now, this is a band that are famous for saying we don't care much for melody. I completely understand that. They are like what the early Venom records are like. Their job is to write evil music, like the black metal band Mayhem, Dark Throne. They don't give a shit about melody. So they're never going to score high on this. And we're not saying you have to have melody to be a great band.
You just have to have good riffs and musicianship.
Yeah, you've got
to be stronger in some other areas.
But you know, there are some moments on here. The baritone choral singing in track 3, God Send Death, is quite imaginative. It's one of the few times Tom Araya does anything interesting at the microphone. And I do like how they turn the opening riff in track 10, Deviant, into a melodic arpeggio sequence using a pedal effect. So you can't really look to us. You know, well, it probably only lasted 20 seconds. And obviously you can't look to a Slayer guitar solo for melody because there's deliberate dissonance in the construction of those solos. And we know that Kerry King's been playing the same solo since 1983. So we're not going to get anything there.
Kirk, does dissonance in solos mean incompetence?
Not really.
Making up as you go along.
It's kind of like he's deliberately not playing the blues. He's deviating away from that. Doesn't really know what he's doing. So it's not like jazz fusion where he's playing some highly technical.
Definition of one hit. It's a one-track wonder, isn't it? Really. If he took more than one take to put any of these solos down, I'd be fucking shocked.
Hanneman's the better of the two, isn't he? As a lead guitar player. Yeah.
Even when he's dead, he's the better of the two. For fuck's sake.
I think some of it's deliberate, but I don't think he knows the theory behind what he's doing. You don't need to, you know. You won't have innovations if everyone was just trapped by theory. But yeah, not great.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. No, but the winner of Melody was, of course, Solitude Aeturnus. Right. We're on to hookability. Andy, your thoughts on hookability for the 3 albums?
Not a lot to say about Solitude Aeturnus. As much as I love this album, there's nothing. I don't know. Perhaps we need to go away and sort of confirm the definition of this category because I've put that there's nothing really that sticks in my mind other than some of the vocal passages. I mean, they're all memorable songs point. In my opinion, and I know them very well, and I can hum them and I can sing along and know what's coming next in each of these tracks. But there's nothing that I would define as hookable or catchy. So they've scored quite a low 30.
Okay.
In that category. Prong, on the other hand, I mean, I've talked about the first 3 songs being particularly enjoyable for me. I think they were really, really good, very catchy. But many of the tracks throughout the album have got that, in your head, rhythm, riff, even vocal lines. Very, very catchy songs throughout. So Prong scored 80 in that category. Slayer, again, this kind of tags onto what I was saying about melody. There's very little. There's certainly no vocal hooks because of how linear and how lazily delivered they are, and the vocals. There's no imagination or creativity in the lyrics. It just seems a random collection of prose, not even fitted into a recognised vocal melody to go with the riffs. It just seems very ad-lib to me. And you say about, were the solos recorded in more than one take? I don't know if the vocals were, So, I mean, there's a couple of songs with some catchy lines, but overall that results in a score of 20.
Okay. Well, for me, so hookability for Solitude Aeturnus. For me, in the moment, the songs are catchy. So when you're there, you're listening to them at that time, you can hum along with them. But as soon as your song's finished, I've forgotten it. Is the big thing about it. So the memorable hook, that's not now. Obviously, as a commercial hook, that's not what they're aiming for. But they managed to achieve it in the moment. So I've given them a score of 50 for hookability. For Prong, big catchy hooky tracks that get your head nodding. So it gave it a score of 70. And for Slayer, Bloodline itself is probably after. I mean, I listened to this song. I listened to all three of these albums back to back in the van, all throughout the day on Monday, just album after album, back and rotating them around. And got to Slayer, and I could literally hum the intro to Bloodline, and that is if you gave me every song title, I'd be like, no idea how any of those songs go. So we got a score of 15 from me for Slayer. Kirk.
Fucking, I'll be interested to see what Slayer score at the end of the.
Ain't fucking high, I can tell you
They're
that.
for a new low, aren't they?
They may be our lowest score ever on this channel.
Hookability, Solitude Aeturnus. I've given it a 50. The songs are long. They're not reliant on simple structures, but they do write choruses in most of their efforts. They struggle to write hooks, but that's because the tempo is slow to mid by default, and that they're not in the game of writing hooks. They want to bring you in with emotion, with sorrow, with melancholia, don't they? And you're not going to be using hooks to do that. But there is a choral harmony on track number 5, Destiny Falls to Ruin, a bit like the intro track. And that really stood out for me. So that's imaginative that we can have a choral harmony as a hook. Even now, that would still be quite original. So all is not lost when it comes to hookability with them. Prong, I'm going to agree with Andy. I mean, I'm going to have to give this a high score. You listen to this album once, you know at least 7 of the 12 songs, the riffs, and a lot of them are imaginative in my opinion. I mean, even the closing track you mentioned, Dave, Test, even that's got like a monstrous hook, hasn't it?
That has, yeah.
Fantastic. And many of these songs, they've got the precision of thrash, the posture of hardcore, and like the adrenaline of industrial music, like track number 7, Out of This Misery. I think that's so original. And how cool is the wah-wah guitar underpinning the groove in Broken Peace? There's about 7 different layers of guitar throughout that song, all held together with an industrial beat and like a new metal bass line. So fun to listen to it. And of course, you already know the lyrics to a Prong chorus because it will be a repeat of the song title. That's a hook, isn't it?
That is.
New definition. What's this song called? Snap your fingers, snap your neck.
Yeah.
I wonder what the lyrics to the chorus would be.
What was
Come on
Scott?
to that one. So yeah, I've given that one a 90. And then Slayer, hookability. So this is where they should have a chance of scoring high. They don't. Well, they get a 60. Track number 3, God Send Death. Simple downward picking hook, works well with Tom Araya's vocals and the verse parts. They do rip off Pantera in the chorus for that. And they have this cool slowed down ending to track number 4, New Faith. And you can understand why Bloodline was the MTV video. That's the one song with some interesting vocal lines and double tracked vocals as well. But yeah, I mean, we should be expecting higher from Slayer, because even when they're playing ultra fast on previous albums, you still get some memorable hooks, don't you? Things that you can hum or slam to. There aren't many here, and there's just an abundance of repetition. Could be from any album of the 90s from Slayer. So not great. I'm giving it a 60.
Okay, so the winner of that round for hookability goes to Prong. Now let's get into the lyrics. This was an interesting one then. So Solitude, Aeturnus, Prong, and Slayer. Andy, your thoughts?
It's my album, so I am going to, think highly of the lyrics. I think they are really imaginative, very well put together, and their stories from start to finish very descriptive. There is an obvious biblical theme to some of them. Now, regarding my religious views, I'm surprised. I do relate to these. I mean, that they are stories. I mean, Where Angels Fear to Dare to Tread is, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot and Abraham and all those characters from that story. Transcending Sentinels is another one, an opaque divinity. I've got those lyrical biblical themes. Transcending Sentinels and Where Angels Dare to Tread were actually written by the original vocalist Christian Gabehart. There's a track on the second album which he wrote the lyrics to as well, and again that's themed around the Book of Revelations. White Ship, I only found this out recently, sort of, well, as I was researching the album and sort of delving a bit deeper, is based on a H.P. Lovecraft story or novel, and I seem to be drawn to sort of tracks that involve seafarers. You know, it features a lot in Doom. St. Vitus have got Burial at Sea, for example. The Penance have got a track called The Wayfarer's Tale. All that kind of sort of first-person perspective of getting on a sail ship, going on a voyage, and it probably ending in catastrophe, as does White Ship. The lyrics of Destiny Falls to Ruin are veering, in my opinion, into sort of Marillion territory. Very, very fish. You know, we done Fugazi last week. They're a bit sort of abstract and, you know, reminded me of that prog rock band. So lyrics score for Solitude Aeturnus is 80.
Okay.
Prong, yeah, they're pretty creative. I picked up on themes being sort of personal struggles and sort of defend yourself against adversaries.
Yeah.
Didn't really get much in the way of story, but they serve the purpose. The lyrics to a metal song, and they work really well. There's not a huge abundance of them, but you don't need them. As you said, Kirk, the chorus consists of the song title. So I've scored 60 for Prong. Slayer, none stood out. I think I mentioned in my last round that, you know, they seem to be ad-libbed and almost crammed into the riffs without any sort of real thought going into the vocal melody and the structure. They're anti-religious in feeling rather than sort of satanic as almost, and you know, necrophilia seemed to be a theme as well in the early Slayer songs. So it's an attack on God rather than praising Satan, which is a sign of maturity, but still not particularly good. You know, lazy and written in a hurry, as I kind of implied in the last round. But I have given them 50. You know, there are some good lines in there throughout. That's it.
Okay. So, for my context for lyrics, I always have to. I'm going to explain how I go about lyrics because I never really listen to lyrics when I'm listening to songs. I never have. I'll end up having songs that I'll know all the lyrics to, but I won't be able. If someone says, "Oh, so what's that song about?" I'll be like, I don't know. But you just sang all the lyrics to that song. Yeah, muscle memory, because I've been singing along to it, but I'd never actually thought about it until I actually get the lyric sheets out. That's the only time I'll actually look at lyrics and think about what a song's about. So there's probably so many albums that I really enjoy that have probably got some really weird meanings about them, and I've never understood them. But so for the way I did with all three of these albums was I picked 3 songs off of each album and pulled the lyric sheets up for all three of them, and just went, right, what's this song about? And let me see if I can just follow it. And if I followed it, brilliant. If I thought the lyrics were on the nose and a bit like there was no depth to them, they scored lower. If I couldn't follow what the story was about, I scored them lower. That's how I approached the lyrics, because if I couldn't read it and understand what the story was, there's no point. The lyrics mean nothing. They're meaningless. So that's just to give you a context on how it. And I didn't do any research on any of the albums on the background. So I found it really interesting. You're telling me the stories of each of these songs from Solitude Aeturnus, but I didn't pick any of that up from reading the lyric sheets. But maybe if I'd researched the album, I probably would have. So talking about Solitude Aeturnus, I think when I was going through the song lyrics on this album, each line is really good. There's some really nice descriptive lines, but in the context of the whole song narrative, I kept getting lost. So I was like, what's this song about? And then I'd read the next line, I'd be like, hang on, I don't know what this refers to, because I didn't know what the reference point was. I didn't know what the story was going to be about. And because I didn't know what it was about, I couldn't pull that out from the lyrics. So I kept getting lost. It's almost like they were trying to make every line have a really deeper meaning rather than let the story just unfold, which for me resulted in a distinct lack of narrative and a distinct lack of payoff for the listener without having any context. Some songs like White Ship were easier to follow, but the narrative, again, didn't give doesn't give a lot of payoff to the listener for the casual listener. So I gave it a lyrics score of 50. With Prong, it's to the point, rage-filled. I picked out political elements in this. Easy to follow, direct. No real subtlety in the lyrics, but it matches the tone of the album, so I gave it 65. For Slayer, I actually thought this was a stronger point for them. I actually thought the lyrics were really good. On topic for the album, easy to follow. So when I read the lyrics without reading it, I straight away understood what the song was about. And there was depth to them, so they weren't just on the surface. There was a little bit more meanings behind them. So I actually scored them higher on this, with their higher score for me, which was 75. Kirk?
Probably the complete opposite to you in all the scores, certainly on Slayer.
This has been the weirdest one this week.
Solitude Aeturnus, there's probably a consensus on this. Give it a 60. I'll just read out a couple of stanzas. But before I do that, Andy, I noticed, where angels fear to tread, it references Genesis, doesn't it? In the Old Testament, the city of Sodom, where Lot lived and was destroyed, along with the neighboring city of Gomorrah. There is a song, track number 5, Destiny Falls to Ruin. This stood out for me, the stanza. I sat upon grassy linen, looking far into my thoughts, among deep and dark forests, lying in a hazy greyish lock. It's almost like a diary entry of somebody who's living in extreme isolation. And there's some interesting couplets as well in track 7, Mirror of Sorrow. In strange visions and through the windows of dreams, we solemnly gaze beyond what is revealed to our eyes, exists already in our minds. I think sometimes they're a bit too impenetrable, but they are verbose, aren't they, as well? And because there's multiple meanings, I think that works in their favour. Because I'm like you, Dave, I didn't really know the background to any of them other than the one that references Genesis. So, I've given them a 60. Prong. No subtlety, and it does match the music, doesn't it? Basically, Prong, their themes are, they're brutally honest, they're from an underdog perspective, and they're either facetious comments about government policy or personal struggles. I mean, look at some of the songs that he's written in the past. I'd give you hell if I could. That song title alone tells you what the mood of the song is from 1991's Prove You Wrong album. So I like the honesty of them, even if there are a few cliches in there. At least there's sincerity behind them. So I did give that 60. Slayer, if we were to just go off track number 1, this would get a high score. I love track number 1 on this album. Man, if they could have just done at least another 3 songs like this, it would have been a semi-decent album. I mean, even now, at age 43, if I was watching them play the title track, track number 2, the title track live, I would be shouting along, God hates us all. It's true, he hates this place. It's true, he hates his race. I just love singing that because it's so nihilistic. And if you're in a bad mood, say there's been a terrorist atrocity, you just feel like saying, do you know what? If God exists, he fucking hates you. And I just love chanting that and going along with it. But this is where it gets bad. Oh my God, do not let fucking Kerry King write your lyrics. He's clearly been listening to nu metal and he's trying to bring this street vibe into Slayer. And 3 of the songs are just him talking about wanting to batter someone. They are so infantile. Callow, I'll give you an example. Threshold, track number 6, is atrocious. Everything I do doesn't stem from you. It doesn't have a fucking thing to do with you. I just want to die, throw it all away. Never have to feel again the way you make me lose my fucking mind all the fucking time. And that's where Tom Araya clearly doesn't believe in the lyrics because he puts in the shittest vocal performance of the album. You must have picked up on that. I mean, he's following the onomatopoeia of the guitars, and they've actually tried to do a rap beat. It's atrocious. Probably the worst song they've ever written. And then you also get songs like Warzone and Payback. Musically, they're not bad, to be fair, but it just reads like a macho dude threatening to twat his enemies. It's so infantile. So I've had to score it down, but because of Kerry King. So he gets a 40. But I do love track number 1 and fucking would willingly chant those lyrics.
Okay, so the winner of the lyrics round goes to Solitude Aeturnus. Okay, is it Aeturnus? Yeah, it is Aeturnus.
Yeah.
I can't even read my bloody typing. My eyesight's going. Right, we're into the final round, and that is all around musicianship. All to play for Slayer on this one. Okay, Randy, over to you.
That sounded like Bullseye.
All to play
Jim Bowen
for.
voice. All to play for, Slayer.
All to play for.
Kerry King up to the hockey. Right. Musicianship, Solitude Aeturnus. Excellent combination of sort of different guitar playing styles. You know, we've got the chords, got single note parts, and sometimes they're combined together. The sort of the intros and the interlude sections and the occasional keyboards. Robert Lowe is credited for playing the keyboards, but as I think you said, Kirk, probably underused, and they never really sort of utilised that in later albums. In Destiny Falls to Ruin, you know, they pick up the pace to almost thrash tempo. I think one of you did say that. Some really good solos as well, especially in Dream of Immortality. Couldn't really have anything to add regarding the sort of rhythm section, that they're there and serve their purpose, but I'm sure competent musicians, but that's really all I can say. But 75 is my score for musicianship. Prong, as we said, absolutely great riffs throughout. You know, multiple riffs in several songs. You know, really over. You know, really what's the word? Privileged to receive so many in certain tracks. That's what drives this album and these songs. Who's Fist and Snap as well. But Tommy Victor, he's not a lead guitarist, is he? He attempts some, but they are, I think, quite poor. Though the one in Whose Fist anyway is probably the best of the bunch. So I've scored 60 for Prong. Slayer, there are some decent riffs. The solos are dreadful. You know, it's almost like me having a go. I mean, I've got no interest in learning lead guitar techniques, but if I was to sort of imagine what I've seen guitarists do live, and you know, that's what, you know, I might even be able to come out with something better than these solos, which is a shame. I mean, I don't remember the Slayer albums I do like having memorable solos and being like the strong parts of the song. I mean, I don't know how these guys are rated as lead guitarists. I think they're probably, you know, back in their heyday in the, you know, late 80s, they probably were considered one, you know, cranking through those charts, didn't they? Top guitarists. I'm sure Hanman and King were in those charts and highly considered as guitarists. But Exile sounds like Chemical Warfare. Again, lazy. Let's just borrow the riff from Chemical Warfare from their, you know, their sort of in between EP between the first two albums. Warzone reminded me of Pantera, and I said before about the track that sounds like Disturbed. Seven Face and Bloodline, I think, are the only really creative and decent songs from this album. So musicianship, I've gone for 40.
Okay, short and sweet for me on this one. So, Solitude Aeturnus, well-structured, classic Doom, accessible to the listener, whilst also holding a slight menace as well. So I've given them a score of 70 on musicianship. For Prong, good understanding of song structures and dynamics. Due to Tommy's unique vocal delivery style, it means the tracks are not as commercial as they possibly could be. However, songs like Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck made it into the wider metal psyche, which is really important to understand. So I've given the album a 70 as well. And for Slayer, I mean, you compare it to albums such as, I don't know, Divine Intervention. Divine Intervention would have scored much higher than this because it was a great album in 92, I think it was, something like that.
94, yeah, good album.
Great album, that one. And that was not but it was thought of as a good album, but was never one of their classics. But that would be a classic compared to this. It was meant to be a return to form, as I said before, but Diabolus and Musica was a braver album for trying something different. And for this, they just literally looks like they just phoned it in. They were told, and I think Terrorizer probably gave it a high score because there was such a backlash to new metal. So they were just basically going, "Oh, look at this is brilliant." When actually, if they'd actually thought about it, they'd have gone, "This is a big pile of shit." Yeah. So for me, Slayer are literally the definition of a true legacy band. They could just go out and play their hits from the 80s and everyone would be fucking happy with it, and they still will be. They should just go and do that, because the best bit of musicianship on this album was the drumming. Drumming was really good on this album, but it was just
that Lombardo. Is he still in band at this point?
Paul Bostaff it is on drums.
Paul was phenomenal on this album, but you wouldn't tell because he was completely swamped over by it. And Tom Araya on vocals, his vocals, his vocal tone is fine, but he's got nothing to work with musically on there. And actually, he's such a lovely, funny guy. I don't know why he sings this sort of stuff, because it's not really him. He's not really got that angst or that anger. So I gave it a score of 30 overall. Kirk, final scores from you then, please.
Yeah, Solitude Aeturnus musicianship 75. I think it's deceptive in its complexity. Listen, for example, there's a really impressive modulation between tempos in track number 2, Opaque Divinity, a bit like My Dying Bride. They'll just switch the tempo without like a cymbal choke or a fill or anything. They just go ahead and do it. And sometimes you think, well, was the record skipped? How did that happen? And then there's a solo in track 4 as well, Dream of Immortality. Very, tasteful solo, rather than just an improvised mess of shredding, which is what Slayer often do. An excellent footwork from the drummer as well. Track number 6, listen how he lays down the 8th notes there. So individually, good musicians, and of course they've got this really strong vocalist as well. And even the bass player, he's putting some expressive shapes in underneath the guitar solos. So they're not a one-dimensional doom band. There's a lot more to Solitude Aeturnus. So thank you, Andy. That was a good recommendation. I enjoyed listening to that. Slayer musicianship. Sorry, Prong. 75. Actually, I'm going to pick up. You're right. He's not a lead guitar player. This is the greatest rhythm guitar album of the 90s, in my opinion. Up there, you've got the Black Album by Metallica. That could be another one. Meshuggah. This is the best for me. Raven on bass, Killing Joke legend. He's carrying a lot of these songs, and Tommy's moving away to other parts of the fretboard. So the rhythm section's really strong. Ted Parsons on drums. He's basically emulating a drum machine for a lot of this and does a good job. They don't overcomplicate anything beyond a standard rock format, but the riffs are brutal. Like they could have got on radio with probably more melodic vocals without even dialing down the guitars. And it's good to see it left a cultural impact because of Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck. So 75. Slayer. Musicianship, you should expect a high level of musicianship. It's thrash metal. There's no place to hide in this genre. You basically are not a thrash metal band unless you can play your instruments. And the drumming is sensational on this and has probably been overlooked. I mean, just listen to the fury of those drum rolls in the first 40 seconds of track 2, God Hates Us All. He refuses to let it settle into a groove. And when that groove comes, absolutely catches you. And that's probably one of the things that impressed you, Dave. Yeah. Love that. And he isn't going over the top on other songs, but what an intro from him. And the coordination between hand and foot as the riffs get into gear deserves a lot of credit for that. But no thought's gone into the guitar solos. King and Hanneman, Andy, decent guitar players. They know what they do. They know the basics of pentatonic rock. So they do know the scales. And Hanneman is doing some interesting things, rather than just A minor pentatonic scales, which everyone does. So I think that you couldn't just pick up your instruments and cover Slayer, especially the drumming part. But what lets it down, the vocals, it is manufactured rage, isn't it? The way he's singing these lyrics. He doesn't believe in them. He's like, where's my fucking time? Oh, the fucking time. All I want to do is kill. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? And do you know what? He's using his head voice as well. He's not even shouting. He's not even projecting. So it is the definition of contrived rage. And there's no place to hide it. It's just fucking...
Yeah, lazy album.
Lazy. Yeah, exactly. So I've given it a 60 because the drummer alone would get in any fucking extreme metal band. Money Paul Bostaph. He is brilliant on this record.
Dave, just before you sort of do the final scores, can I just make a point about the Prong album? I'm going to paraphrase you here. There's a good 8-track album in there. 12 songs, 57 minutes. It's a bit of a slog.
Too long. Yeah, too long. They could have chopped 3 from that, couldn't they?
Yeah. But yeah, decent album. I enjoyed it.
So I would think it would, if I picked the follow-up album, Rude Awakening, which is actually my favourite album from there, because I actually think there's even more hooks. I think they actually understood, and his vocals get better.
Yeah, they're good on that. They are.
They are. Rude Awakening is particularly strong on that one, and Controller. Right. The winner. Let's find out. It was quite close, but the winner for this week goes to Prong and Cleansing with a score of 64, followed by Solitude Aeturnus and Into the Depths of Sorrow with 62. So only 2 points in. I actually thought Solitude Aeturnus was going to do it, but it was the fact that Kirk gave 100 score on riffage. to Prong, which
someone's going to get 100, and in my collection, I would give it to Prong. I just fucking honestly, they're just sensational.
It gave it an average score on Riffage of 73, but because I scored it quite low, so it did kind of compensate that out. And in third place was Slayer with an overall score of 39.
Oh, that's the lowest, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, that is definitely the lowest score we've ever had for an album, and it was from Slayer. Right now, we actually have a
Kurt, why did you pick that one? Did you?
I haven't listened to it for years. I just remember buying it. I just remember buying it in 2001, liking the opening track, and thinking, "Oh, there's not much else here." So I was thinking, "Oh, what is it?" And it was worse than I remembered, actually.
Yes, it was.
Apart from the drumming, which is fucking amazing on this record.
I gave it so many listens just in a vain hope that maybe after repeat listens it would get better, and it just didn't. Right, well, we've got a 2-week break, but we're still going to still pick our next albums for review. So, Andy, what album have you put for us for 2 weeks' time?
I'm going thrash this time. The 1986 album, The Force, by UK thrash legends Onslaught.
Cool.
Nice. Okay. Making my notes there. I'm going to give you the album Cauterize by the band Tremonti.
From Mark Tremonti, yeah?
Mark Tremonti from Alter Bridge. And Creed. Kirk.
I'm going to give you the Scream Blast Repeat album of the year for 2020. English prog metal giants A.D.K with their 51-minute album Virus.
Please tell me it's not like one song that's 50-odd minutes. Though.
No, it's not. Hey,
If you ever pick an album that's a Doom album that's one song and it's like 40 minutes, I ain't fucking doing it.
Hey, a prog metal album less than an hour. I've just given you some low-hanging fruit there.
So I've got got Scrap Mirror Reaper by Bell Witch then.
Yeah.
No, I'll do it. If you decide
I think it's 83 minutes, one song.
Yeah, not happening. It's not going to win we definitely ain't going to win the fucking hookability shit, is it?
No.
At that point.
Minus 50 hookability, yeah.
Musicianship might well be high either.
So we've got the Force from Onslaught, A.D.K with Virus, and Tremonti Cauterize. So yeah, it should be an interesting, good mix of 3 different bands there. So join us for our next one. Let us know what you think. Will we excessively harsh on Slayer? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the video sometime very soon. Take care.